Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Después de la comida es un poco difícil retomar el ritmo y empezar, pero ya estamos aquí a escuchar la conferencia magistral del doctor Carlos Azzoni, titulada decía que no es tanto una descomposición, sino como una desmembración, desarticulación, ¿sí?, de las reducciones crecientes en cuanto al ingreso personal regional, la distribución o inequidad en la distribución del ingreso personal y regional en Brasil. Bien. El doctor Carlos Azzoni, ¿sí?, es expresidente del Departamento de Economía y decano asociado y decano de la Facultad de Economía, de Administración y Contabilidad de la Universidad de São Paulo, en Brasil. Es profesor visitante en la Universidad de Illinois, en la Universidad Estatal de Ohio y en la Universidad de Cornell. Su interés principal está en la línea de la desigualdad regional y otros asuntos regionales. Entonces vamos a escuchar la conferencia del doctor.
Creo que esta será la primera vez que el presentador va a dormir enquanto presenta. No sé si será la primera vez. Entonces, para dejarlos un poco más animados, voy a decir que voy a hablar muy poco, menos de 3 horas. Mira, este tema que en inglés está desentangling, en portugués podría ser destrinchar, en una versión previa estaba decomposición, pero no es una decomposición lo que hacemos. Entonces cambié el nombre. I changed the name. I'll do it in English because the slides are in English. So this is the master dissertation by Rafael Marcos. I advised him and also Joaquim Guilhoto, we co-advised. So, the division of labor is Marcos did the hard work and Joaquim did the dirt work and I traveled to present. That's how I started. And if you have any compliments, any good things to say about it, say it to me. If you have any doubts, say it to Joaquim. And if there is any mistake, it's Marcos. So that's how we divide labor. We believe in division of labor. So why do we study this? Well, there have been many changes in Brazil recently in terms of income distribution. But some factors had an important influence. The first one is stabilization of the economy. So we had inflation rates of 38, it became 1 month 80% in a month. So everything, any economic calculus was impossible. So since 1994 it's changed, and now it's around 6% per year, which is. Then there is minimum wage appreciation. You can see the second graph, it's going up. It's 3 times as much as it used to be. And that's very important in the poor regions where many people get the minimum wage. Not in the richest part of the country, few people get minimum wage. And then there were social programs I'll talk about and a more open economy. Still, Brazil is a very closed economy in terms of international comparisons, but it is much more open. You see that we move it, the final demand has increased the external part. This is the Gini coefficient. since 1978, and you can see the green line is when we had a macroeconomic stabilization, 1994, and then the green line, the red line marks the beginning of the Labour Party's participation, the first 8 years with Lula, recent 4 years with Dilma, and 4 more years with Dilma now. So you can see that it's dropping, but it has started dropping before, and the previous administration has an important role in this by cleaning up the mess in the economy and institutions, etc., and making it possible for the economy to work better. But anyhow, so I spent my whole academic life explaining how and why and how much the Brazilian economy was unequal. Now I have to learn how to explain why it is decreasing, and I didn't have any argument. Now I have it. So what we tried to do is what's behind it, and what are the consequences for income inequality. So what we do, those are the objectives. Looking at the structural changes that have happened and what's their role in the reduction, and what are the interregional and intra-regional effects. So here are some maps. The upper left is just the Brazilian macro regions. We have 27 states, and those are the regions that we are going to use those regions. On the upper right side is the Human Development Index. Red is bad, so you hear all the north and northeast with low income. In the middle, the green part in the middle is the state of São Paulo. And the middle map is population density. You can see that's mostly on the coast, but in São Paulo and Rio, it goes inside, it goes inland. And here is some information on per capita income on the right, about the same as HDI. And manufacturing per square kilometer, density of value added on the left. And you see that the greener part is the São Paulo and Rio areas. So there is concentration, there is inequality, regional and personal. So this is just sets the stage for what comes. So we have a social accounting matrix, and this is the well-known diagram. So we have the upper part, left part is more the intermediate consumption part. So sectors buying from other sectors. It's the technological structure of the economy. And then in the bottom we have value added, on the upper right final demand, and the system works and produces some sort of income distribution as a result. So over time there have been changes, and for instance in the production structure, the economy is more open. We buy machinery from other countries. We buy shoes from China, we buy clothing from China, we used to produce them. We import much more, and there is this discussion about the deindustrialization of the country. And so these might have caused some changes in income inequality. It must play a role, and we want to see what role it plays. The other thing is the payment to labor factor. So the population became more educated, and the demand for labor have changed in the same sectors. So probably we have some source of change there too. And of course, the functional distribution of income between labor and capital has changed, and we might have another source there. Consumption of households have changed. Aging population, more income, the uprising of the new middle income class and all the stuff that people talk about, it might have changed it. And of course, final demand, the composition of final demand have changed it. And so the idea is to see, okay, what happens if these things didn't happen? So what we do is a counterfactual simulation. We take the situation in 2009, which is the latest year we have a SEM for, and we put the technological structure of 2004 and see what happens. So if the technical structure had not changed, what would be the situation in 2009? I must tell you that when we started this, the dream was to go back to 1996, before the big changes, and see in a longer period more structural changes. However, we started with 2009. It's a lot of work to create those SEMs. Then we did 2004. We are ready to go to 1996, and Rafael got a job in Brasilia and left. So I need another student now to do to 1996. So I'm presenting a short period of time, but you'll see that there have been important changes, and those have produced impacts in income distribution. So what we do is this counterfactual thing. So let's go to the results before I show you how we did it. So we present the results in a, so this is 2009, if things had not changed. So the first column is the technology, is the input-output coefficients, the AIJ coefficients, including imports. So if we look at the lower line, it's minus 0.1%. So that means if we kept the technology of 2004, the country would be less unequal, a little bit, that's 0.1 in terms of Gini, 0.1%. So a minor change, but the negative means the country would be less unequal. Then the second column is final demand. I'll show you later that final demand composition has changed. And that's minus 2.3. If we didn't have a change in final demand, we would be less unequal. So technology and final demand have restrained the decrease in inequality. Then we go to household consumption, zero effect, minor. And the big engine of change was the change in the payment to factors, how sectors pay factors of production. And we'll see how it relates to education. It related to a larger demand for high quality labor, highly educated labor. So, and then we have the difference region by region. And now we go to the interregional situation. So now we use the TIO index, and we have the intra-regional and interregional components. Again, looking only at the last line, which is the national totals. We have the same results, but with different values because the indexes are different. The interesting thing to point out is that the changes that have happened made the country less unequal, in the sense that without the changes, the country would be more or less unequal, more equal. So these are the results we had with the simulations. In spite of the 5-year period, it's too short period for structural transformations. And since the speed of transformation were very fast, we could spot those roads. Now, how we did it? We have the results. I hope you are awake now, except for Joaquin. Amazing. Now, I'll show you some details. So as I mentioned, we have social accounting matrices for these 2 years. Part of the job we do when we do large models, like input-output, CGEs, is that we work for 3 years and then we present one number and people say, oh, so what? And we work at many hours, and so building those those social accounting matrices was a huge job by Rafael Marcos, and I have to say he worked like crazy, and I'm happy he's one of the Marajás in Brasilia now, getting 3 times as much I get as a faculty. But anyway, it's part of teaching, right? And then we use all those sources. We start, as I mentioned this morning, with the national accounting, and we have national totals. We make sure that we allocate those to the right places, the right people, and so on and so on. So we have 12 income brackets. You can see in the second column, monthly income 2004, we take the deciles, so we take the first 9 deciles, and then for the rich people we have between 90 and 95, and then the top of the pyramid 2.5, 2.5. So we have the very rich, the not so rich, the rich, and the others. Of course, the bottom of the pyramid are here. And the arrows you see on the right indicate that there was an increase in the shares of the upper income classes, and there was a decrease in the shares of the lower income classes up to the class 6. Class 6 lost a little bit, but all the bottom of the pyramid shrunk, and they moved it to up the pyramid. So this is, of course, related to inequality, since the Gini is a result of this. And this is schooling, and this is important, education, number of years in school. We have in 2004, 10% of kids with less than 10% of workers, not kids, workers with less than 10%, less than 1 year of education. It moved to 8. So up to 7 years of education, there was a reduction in the share. And we increased the upper part, the 15 years and more, from 8 to 11, from 11 years to 14, from 26 to 32%. So this also creates an important change in income distribution, together with a change in labor demand by sectors. And here is intermediate consumption, interregional, across the years. You can see that if you take the bottom part here, the north, you read that the north buys from the north 51% of intermediate consumption, 6% from the northeast, 4% from the Midwest, and 32% from the southeast, where São Paulo state is, and 7% from the south. If you look at the southeast, if you reach the part, it buys 85% of total intermediate consumption from itself, and only 15% from the other regions. That's 2009. But if you look and compare those numbers. For some reason it's out of place. But if you compare those numbers with the same numbers in 2004, you see that for each and every region, the self-purchase have decreased, in the sense that an increase in interregional trade for the intermediate consumption has happened. And has happened for the Southeast. It used to be 2% it used to be 87%, now 85%. And even for the Northeast used to buy, I have to go back because I can read. It used to have 73% buying from itself, now it buys 64% less. So it's buying more from other regions. So together with the other factor, this also has an impact on interregional inequality. This is the regional share in national production. This is the share in GDP. The North had 4.9, increased a little bit. Northeast from 11.8 to 12.5. Northeast has gained and has been gaining in the last 10 years for the first time. In the short history we have data for, from 1940s on. The Midwest had 8.8, now it's 9.4. The Southeast, 55.7, dropped to 55.3, and the South also lost. Although those are minor changes, they are not so small, considering that those changes take a long time to happen, and that you can see that it's a huge change for a 5-year period. And we had observed change in the importance of the sectors. Some sectors gained, some sectors lost. So those are the winning sectors. At the national level, you have commerce, public administration, finance, construction, and food and beverage. If you go to the Northeast, for instance, where social programs are very important, transfers of income to poor people, you see that the two sectors gaining are commerce, where people go buying, spending their money, and public administration. If you go to the Southeast, it's commerce, but banking, the insurance, so the gaining sectors are different in different regions, although there are some repetition, like commerce everywhere. The growth of Brazil over this period was pulled by the internal consumption, and this is part of it. Public administration, an increase in the role of government, and those are the losers. And at the national level, electronics, some chemicals, resins and elastomers, and wood products, and it changes across regions. So we have observed important changes in the structure of production, also in terms of share of the sectors, and that has an important role. This is consumption by income class. This is share of the budget spent on different products. Those are inferior goods. I mean, goods you eat, you buy less as your income increases. And those are superior goods or normal goods. But if you compare the 2 years, the changes are minor. So people move it from low income class to an upper income class, adjoining probably. But when they move it to the upper level, they consume it as the previous guys in that level. So a apparently that didn't change. We want to see if people are eating more healthy by aging of population that would produce a change in the way people spend money, but we don't observe that in a 5-year period. And then changes in consumption. So the upper level shows the share of each class, income class, in total consumption. And the lower, the last line shows the difference. So what we see is for those income classes, there have been increase. Those are the gainers in terms of more consumption. And the poor guys are having less share of consumption. So that happened too. And here in the bottom part are the products with larger variations. So if you go to hotels and restaurants, it increased the same as commerce. But if you go to real estate and rents, it decreased. It's associated with some housing programs where people bought their apartments, their houses, and rented less. Education, food, and so those are the changes. So we had one problem I mentioned this morning, that we have to do this estimation. We allocated part of the income of the self-employed to labor and part to capital. This is how we did it. I have described this in the morning, I'm not repeating it. And this is the payment to factors. As I mentioned before, this is the most important factor in the change in inequality. So the red part is the share of capital, and the black part is the share of labor. So if you go to the second row, the last row here, that's the share of capital. So in 2009, 43% of total income was capital, compared to 48% in 2004. So there was a drop in income in capital share. And here is the share of people with 1 year of education, 1 to 3, etc. And this is people with college degrees. So if I just point out that for fishing, well, I picked fishing not by my preference in fishing, but because it was the only one with an increase in capital. But all the main sectors lost share in capital. It has to do with more payment to labor. And if you go less educated people lost share, highly educated people increase their share. So we are paying more, a larger share to people with higher education, a smaller share to people with lower education. It's been on the press all the time. There is a high demand for labor, but not for any labor. People with skills, college, etc. So this is part of changes that you don't see on a day-to-day basis that's interesting to measure. And this is the participation of labor force in income. If you take the South, is the only region in which the share of capital increased. This is household income. All the others, so it is 21%, it used to be 22%, all the rest lost. But the gainers are labor with high education. Those are, in terms of functional distribution of income, those are the winners in terms of share. in this period. And this is capital income. This was a tricky part, and Rafael has a great contribution here in estimating capital income and how it is allocated to regions. It's not a tricky thing, very technical problems we had to face, but we had how capital payments flew from region to region in a minor way. Typically, you have 100% of capital in the region, with some exceptions, like the north and the southeast, in which there is some share moving from region to region. And this is exogenous demand decomposition. You can see that there was a decrease in government, decrease in investment, and increase in exports. Exports used to be 28% of total demand. Now it's 40. It's a big change in 5 years. Government 36 went down to 30, and investment 36 went down to 30%, except in the northeast and the southeast, in which it has increased. So the distribution of investment is changing over time. So when we put all this together, and this is just to prove you that we do have a social accounting matrix for the country. We have two, one for each year. And we try to follow all the guidelines to build them. And I'm quite sure this is a very well done job. And that's Rafael's merit. And when we go to per capita income inequality, we did Gini with discrete data, and we tend to overestimate inequality when you use discrete data and not continuous data. It's well documented in the literature. And you already had the results. I'm skipping the results because I have already shown them. And the conclusion is that there have been important changes in interregional trade and regional interdependence in terms of intermediate consumption. However, this impact on regional inequality was not big, on income inequality. Changes in final demand acted to restrict the decrease. If we didn't have those changes, the decrease would have been even larger, because we had more investment that pays more capital and more government expenditures that are not pro-poor in general. And on the consumption side, the effects were not that great, but it was larger for intra-regional inequality than inter-regional inequality. The most impacting changes were the factor income to families, and I haven't shown, but we have estimated the impact of Bolsa Família, which is the Progressa from Brazil. It's cash transfers to low-income families. And those are the two largest impacting factors on the change in regional inequality. So, in summary, we have observed, in spite of the small period of time, we have observed a sharp decrease in the Gini index, and that happened together with many things happening at the same time. We haven't assessed the joint influence of all those activities. We have picked one at a time and have estimated their impact. Of course, if we do everything together, probably the importance would be smaller for each aspect. But with that, we've been able to spot or to tell what was the importance of each of those structural changes. Of course, this illuminates a little bit the road, but still there are many kilometers to go. Thank you.
Muy bien, pues después de la interesante presentación doctor, si alguien tiene alguna pregunta, una intervención, aquí tenemos dos. Por favor.
Thank you. This was very, very helpful. A couple of thoughts. You talked about inter-regional trade in goods and services. What about inter-regional trade in people? And I remember some years ago you had a paper that you were looking at the inequality across metropolitan areas, talking about what would happen if X thousand people shifted from one region to another. I think as a counterfactual experiment, it might be interesting to see whether, in fact, migration had an impact on the outcomes. Secondly, do you have the ability to extract a transition matrix showing how, with these 12 income categories, how people move from one category to the next? Because I think that might be kind of interesting to forecast that, assuming some sort of mock-up process. And then next time you're able to put together a social accounting matrix, you can see to what degree the economy is moving towards some sort of equilibrium distribution and what that distribution looks like. And again, the degree to which I think some earlier work that you did and other colleagues, there may be existence of clubs within the Brazilian economy, and that what is happening is that maybe the North and the Northeast are converging in one set of clubs, the South and the Southeast. The other part is that having listened to one of our alumni, the president of your Central Bank, at a meeting in Chicago, talking about the fact that you've reduced the numbers in poverty by 40%. And what is missing in this aggregate Gini index is some sort of relative changes that have taken place in these categories. And I think it would be kind of interesting to see whether that transition matrix and some relative changes could be highlighted, because what is happening is the larger income groups are just sort of swamping the whole process here, but you are getting some significant changes. And it would be unrealistic in a period of 4 years to see this massive movement in the lower end. But what I see that's very disturbing about this is that with the higher educated people accruing greater returns, the expectation is that as they get older, then you might see a reversal of this trend as sort of a Piketty type world begins to play in Brazil. But I think that what you've established here is sort of a very interesting basis, I think, for doing some very nice experimentation, enhancing the counterfactuals you've done. Thank you very much.
Very interesting suggestion, as always, and I have to find another student to do this, and another Rafael, or get him fired from Brasilia, and then that would probably help. And the idea of the transition matrices are fantastic. But I think it would be more interesting if we do that after we do 1996, because I'm very concerned with the short period of time. Although we know, and the data shows that there have been important changes, but I would love to see them in a longer period, because we all know that the structural things take time to happen. we might have capturing, 2009 was a tricky year because the crisis in the US was 2008, in Brazil 2009. So you never know what's price effect, what's quantity. So however, we have the matrix for it, we have the household survey for it for that year. Anyhow, it's too short a period of time to observe what the ideal thing is. And so those transition matrices would make even more sense, although they do make sense here. And also the change in the genes, the marginal change you mentioned, fantastic. So I will be advertising for new students to come and take on what Rafael did so far. Thank you.
Un poco la presentación a mí me llama la atención, comparando lo que sucede en México con lo que sucedió en México en el periodo con lo que sucede en Brasil. Nosotros hicimos un análisis y la tendencia es que ciertas regiones formaron núcleos de concentración en vez de convergencia a raíz de 1994, ¿no? Con la apertura y el mercado, ¿no? Entonces, un poco viendo los datos de Brasil, saltan varias cosas de análisis comparado, sobre todo yo conozco la economía brasileña y la política, ¿no? Pero por lo que vi así muy rápido, por un lado me llama la atención de como si la población no tuviera efectos en términos de tasas, ya se mencionó lo de la migración y la movilidad, como si las regiones mantuvieran de manera estática su especialización, ¿no? Y que simplemente por sí mismas crecieran y se desarrollaran, ¿no? Entonces, eso, no sé, habría que ver, ya se mencionó, pero el efecto de la migración por un lado, y por el otro lado, ¿cuál es el efecto del crecimiento demográfico? No sé, aunque es un periodo muy corto, pero se toma desde el periodo de 94, creo que vi ahí ese cambio que yo observé, pero no sé en qué medida eso tiene incidencia. La otra parte, y esa es una duda, ¿no? Como está el análisis descrito sobre, digamos, los datos, no hay una relación, aunque es obvia, digamos, las relaciones de las ecuaciones, las identidades contables, ¿no? No sé en qué medida esto es suficiente. Por ejemplo, esta idea de que aumenta el pago de factores, ¿de dónde surge ese aumento? Pareciera ser asociado a productividad y a cambio en el empleo de mano de obra de mayor calificación, ¿no? Aunque, no sé, ahí no me queda claro, según entendí, aumentaron las exportaciones, aumentó el empleo y el pago a salarios de mano de obra calificada, y las regiones se mantuvieron, digamos, con especializaciones estáticas y crecieron simplemente sin movilidad. Bueno, un poco. Entonces el problema es la inequidad entre las regiones, o cómo se dio esta movilidad y qué efectos tuvo sobre la misma desigualdad, ¿no? Entonces, en términos del modelo, también quiero saber un poco, desconozco totalmente, qué tanto la apertura y el cambio del modelo de la economía hacia la apertura externa, como en el caso de México, pues hizo migraciones y movilidades y generó cambios en la distribución, aunque no alteró la estructura fundamental regional y la concentración. Entonces también un poco es la curiosidad, no sé si es mucho pedir, hacer este intento de un poco pensar no sé si hay los elementos para México y Brasil, y algunas yo creo que nos ayudaría un poco a reflexionar para distinguir los cambios. Gracias.
Sobre la parte demográfica no hay nada. Entonces hay personas, en 2004 hay personas, en 2005 no son las mismas, pueden ser, no sabemos. No hay migración, lo mismo que Jeff mencionó. No hay... El objetivo principal era saber si podemos hacer esta contrafactual. ¿Qué lengua estoy hablando? Español. Entonces, si hacemos este contrafactual, ¿qué va a ser el rol de cada cosa individualmente? Entonces, no preguntamos sobre población, pero podemos, y se puede hacer. Hay datos para esto. Tampoco la idea era saber, ok, hay una reducción que no mostré, la concentración económica un poquito, pero en la desigualdad regional también, de ingreso. Que los cambios que están aconteciendo con más automóviles y producción de autos en el Nordeste, en Salvador y ahora en Recife, una industria naval en Recife, más petróleo en Salvador y Recife, que son importantes, están aconteciendo en ese periodo. Esto fue importante lo que pasó en la producción, o fue importante lo que pasó en el consumo, porque en el consumo ha sido, en la distribución de ingresos, la base de la pirámide ha sido muy grande, con salario mínimo, con la estabilización de la moneda, que tomaba dinero de los pobres, mucho dinero, y ahora toma más, toma menos. Entonces, ¿qué tiene a ver esto con la desigualdad regional? Esto ha sido la primera pregunta. Que respondemos algunas cositas solamente. Nos faltó pernas de Rafael, que se fue. Pero eso da mucho trabajo hacer. No recomiendo a nadie para empezar a hacer eso, porque muchas horas de trabajo en grandes bases de datos, de hacer compatibilidad. Pero entonces hay una familia de preguntas importantes a saber, a buscar a partir de esto. Pero otra vez, me gusta regresar un poco en el tiempo para saber, para tener una perspectiva más amplia de periodo y de cambios. Porque en este periodo hubo cambios, especialmente en la demanda, pero no hay tiempo para cambios en la producción, por ejemplo. Aunque los datos muestran algún cambio, pero el ejercicio más interesante con un poco más de perspectiva. Pero son aspectos fundamentales.
So I have, I think, some good news for you, which is maybe you don't need to, I mean, it's interesting to look at the income inequality issue, but I think a lot of these answers can be answered with a simple look at productivity by sector, and looking at a simple decomposition. So I think just you need Joaquin and not another student. So Joaquin, you have a lot of work to do, is what I'm suggesting. And then the other thing is to look at something similar to what Jeff did, but then if you have industry, occupation by industry, you can look at the transition of that and use something like Ed Wolf has a decomposition, basically taking occupations into like 5 different groups. I think one is kind of an unskilled group, one is a data, one is analytical. There's like 5 or 6 categories, and you can break those up and look at the transition of that by industry and see how the occupation transition happens across industries as well. So you can take a look at that, and I suspect what's happened is that high human capital, high skill each occupation are the ones that are getting more and more demand. It would show your evidence without having to go through the full sample. You see what I'm saying? So I think you'll have all the information at hand now to do a lot of interesting analysis without waiting for a new student or funding a new student, just finish off to do it for free.
Well, that's the hardest part. Having Joaquin doing anything. Only when I give money to him, he reacts. But it's becoming insensitive. Every time I need more money. No, those are interesting aspects.
I've done similar stuff in China.
Yeah. Because we start with many questions. For instance, is this a problem that we have less manufacturing? Or is this a problem that the same manufacturing are employing different people? Or are buying less from the other sectors? So is this in the input-output table? Or is this in the value added? Or
And exactly, this is my point, is that you may see some of those decreasing returns to capital is due to the increasing international competition. And so you get some of the other answers that you can't get now. And I think if you did this other one, the two together would inform each other, but would give you 4 publications instead of just 2.
I'll ask you to give me the reference later. Or to Joaquin.
Can I just have a comment? Just before the election, the Economist magazine had a series of editorials and articles, and they raised the concern that I've had very much with this false familiar. And I think in the SAM, I think that we need to do something a little more, and that is looking at what is doing to the accumulated debt of the central government and the degree to which that is going to be sustainable, and the impact that that might have on Brazil's exchange rate over the short to medium term, the competitiveness of Brazilian exports, and so on and so forth. Because I think that at the moment, the policymakers are sort of looking at this as a free good. It's sort of costless. We're having this massive reduction in poverty without talking about what is it costing us, what are the opportunity costs in this regard. And so perhaps, if you haven't already, to think about some experiments where you look at whether in fact you might achieve a similar reduction with some other strategy and the degree to which this one is sustainable. And I think that seems to be it.
For instance, how much productivity increase we needed to get the same reduction in inequality, for instance. And another interesting suggestion. About the Bolsa Familia things, we did an experiment, and you know the study. We know that the way government spends money has one. So when government takes $1 from the budget, that it would be spent the way government spends, buying things and paying payrolls. Takes it from there and moves to Bolsa Familia. The way this money penetrates the economy is different. It goes one way here, one way there. So you expect that the final effect on income distribution is different. So we did an experiment comparing what poor families do with the money with what would be the situation if that money would have been spent by government the traditional way. Because typically, if you just put more money to Bolsa Familia and you don't ask from where it comes from, then of course the economy will be larger because you are injecting money in the economy. So you have to ask, okay, what's the alternative? What's the opportunity cost of money? And when we do that, we found that with the previous methodology and with previous older data, work with Guillotte again, we found that there is, it hurts the growth of the country, transferring money to poor people. I mean, the country would grow faster, a little bit, but it's positive, if government spent money the traditional way. Of course, there are other considerations about social programs that are not related to that. But, and I think Dilma, the re-elected president, knows this better than anyone. She got re-elected from the Northeast, where 62% of Bolsa Familia money is allocated. She got over 70% of votes in the Northeast. So this is very important politically. I'm not talking about that. And socially, it's very important. I think the trick is how to convert the short-run expenditure into investment, in the sense that these poor people, over time, will have a performance in the future that will return to society in terms of increased productivity, the money back. But it will take, I don't know how many decades, and we don't have an idea how to do this. At least I don't have at this point. But this is the important question. So looking at the short run, it's a waste of money in terms of growth. But looking at the medium long run, it could be a high return investment. It could be. I have no idea if it is or not. But so it's more complex than. But your ideas are and the questions are relevant. Where does the money come from, and what's the opportunity cost?
¿Alguna pregunta más? ¿Comentario? Bien, pues vamos a agradecer entonces la interesante plática del doctor Carlos. Y pues en nombre de la Universidad de Guadalajara, queremos hacer participación. Muchas gracias.